Welcome, everybody, to the Rocket X podcast. I'm your host, Victor Rancor. Today, I have an exciting guest, Paul Childers with Blue Sky Business Solutions. He's an expert in business credit and really helping you how to build credit and also how to really guide you through the navigation of business credit and growing it. And I know this is something that's a very big topic for a lot of my clients, a lot of people that are going to be viewing this podcast, and really trying to figure out where to start, right? Because I work with a lot of startups. I work with a lot of contractors that have maybe taken some bad loans, and I've taken bad loans in the past. And I think this podcast is really going to enlighten us a little bit on that, things we should do, things that we shouldn't do. But Paul, man, I'm excited to have you on the show.
Hey, Victor, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you, and hopefully we can educate and inform some people today.
So, tell my audience a little bit about what Blue Sky is all about, what do you guys do, and then obviously kind of how you got here. Because, you've kind of made yourself a little bit of an expert in the space from seeing from afar on your social media and stuff. You want to talk a little bit about what you do and how you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So Blue Sky Business Solutions came about through a lot of experience just in the commercial lending space from my time in automotive, doing fleet deals, fleet loans, coming across, clients and customers that, you would have similar clients and businesses that would get approved on actual commercial loans. A week later, you would have the exact same business come in, almost identical revenue, and they would get approved only on a personal loan. And, that kind of started out like my curiosity of, well, why are there differences in what approvals for? How do they get these approvals? How do we qualify them for them? And so that kind of led me down a rabbit hole to start really working with companies like Allied, or led me down into bigger manufacturers, OEMs like John Deere, Case, etc. And we started teaching owners at our dealership how to do all this stuff, to be able to qualify for commercial loans. So that's really kind of what led me into this. But Blue Sky really helps business owners identify where their credit issues are, because we still need to have good personal credit too, right? Like that, no matter what we do, our personal credit still has to be decent and protected. But a lot of times what we see is that business owners use that when they're starting up their business and don't put enough of it onto their actual business to carry, so their personal credit takes a hit, right? Poor experiences, poor no pay, credit cards, bad loans, all that kind of stuff ends up hurting our personal credit. So when we started Blue Sky, when I started Blue Sky, I should say, one of the identifying areas that I found with this was like business owners just don't know what they don't know. We don't know the sources to go to all the time to be able to build business credit. A lot of business owners I still talk to don't even know what business credit is or how it's different from personal credit. So we just decided that we start building this gap and educating people on what this is, and then helping them use that to go source good loans. So that's ultimately what we do is we will identify, target, and then help place owners with the right lenders so that they don't go backwards in this process.
Yeah, and the emphasis on good loans, right? And, obviously I started my business with, I didn't have a bunch of money. I had good personal credit, but I didn't have any business credit. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to even do any of it. And obviously it's a brand new LLC. And statistics says that 95% on contract or, businesses are going to go out of business in the first 5 years. So when you first start out, most banks don't want to work with you, right? Not the good loans. You have to use your personal credit to kind of leverage a little stuff when you're starting out. But one of the things that I see in contractors that I meet with and I call it consult with is these merchant cash advance loans. And I start talking to these guys, and these guys are paying, some exorbitant amount of interest, but plus they're paying daily payments, and they can't figure out why their cash flow is so messed up. Yep. You want to talk a little bit about these predatory loans and some stuff that you're seeing with some of your contractors? I think you're talking before that you had a contractor at a 66% interest they're paying, something like that.
Yeah, so I've got 8 clients that we're working with right now that have loans that are essentially merchant cash advances, working capital loans. These ones were sold as simple lines of credit with compounding monthly interest. So they had like a 4.85% monthly compounding interest. What they weren't told, or what law is lost control of, is that if you don't pay those loans off the month, they end up compounding to the point that you get 12 to 18 months in, and you're at 60% interest all of a sudden, right? That's not really a manageable number, but it was an easy loan to get access to. They felt like they needed it, and so they went and applied. It was easy. They got approved, and then they thought they could manage it. Well, you know this because you see a lot of guys' financials and you know how they manage their books. We don't earmark things really well as business owners. And so expenses get pushed onto other jobs. We get paid from goes to pay for a different job. And then those lines of credit don't get paid back and managed the way that they should. And it snowballs into a disaster, right? The other scenario that we see is sometimes we just need or think we need access to quick capital because we've got payroll coming up and our jobs aren't going to pay us until a net 30. Well, that payroll is due in a net 10, and we don't have the income to cover that. So then we go and hit a purchase easy money. The dollar amounts look innocent, right? You get $36,000 over 18 months, and it's only $300 a month or whatever, a day, I should say, in payments. And we look at that and we go, that's manageable. Well, as we all know, daily payments that keep coming out like that, it ends up again snowballing, because when things are tight and you've got money coming out, that's not a manageable situation to be in. So it's better to kind of understand what that money really is, and then also have a really quick source to pay that back, right? So for businesses that are under a year old or under 2 years old, it can be a little bit more difficult, but with a little bit of prep, a little bit of understanding, you can work with lenders that will give you more stable working capital loans, even if you're under 2 years old, as long as the financial information that you're presenting, the projections that you're presenting are good, and you got a good credit score. So
you want to talk a little bit about how important it is to have your financials correct, right? So a lot of contractors, and obviously we own a bookkeeping company, and we see it all the time. Like some of these contractors, their books make no sense. They got their P&Ls are all out of whack. They got stuff that should be on their balance sheet on the P&L, or vice versa, or they don't even have a balance sheet at all. You want to talk a little bit about that and how important it is to have cleaned up financials?
Yeah. So credit only gets you so far. Cash flow only gets you so far. So when I say cash flow, I mean money into your bank account and money out of your bank account. Those will get you approved for certain loans. But when you start going in and you want to get SBAs, you want to start getting larger commercial capital lines with equipment manufacturers, motor Chevy, you want to qualify for large commercial real estate purchases. Those type of things require clean financials. The cleaner your financials are, the more stable everything looks and the better you present it, the larger the loans you're going to be able to qualify for, and the better the interest rate, the better the terms, right? So, like I said, your credit gets you in the door. Gives you more money, better terms, and cheaper money, right? I mean, at the end of the day, financials are such a critical piece. People talk too much. It needs to be a lot cleaner than what it is for some of these businesses.
Well, the other thing I talk about with my contractors is some of these guys, they try to grow too fast too in the startup. So in a startup, when they, got to see what a bank sees a volatile company, and even a volatile could be a growing too fast company, right? Mm-hmm. And they see these kind of things, and a lot of guys don't realize how important it is almost to start out like not overly crazy, right? Make sure the financials are good, make sure you're in the profits. Don't try to hit the gas too early, because you're going to need credit before you, if you try to get to that $5, the $10, $20 million level, if you don't have credit in place, you're going to have a hard time growing, right? Obviously, as you scale, I got to a point where we're doing 16, 20 jobs a day, right? And I got to pay all that equipment costs. I got to pay for all that stuff. So I got to have a big line of credit, because otherwise I would just kill my cash flow. If every day I had to pay $18,000, and it takes sometimes it takes 3-4 days to get paid on some of the jobs. So as you try to scale, you don't understand how much cash flow you're going to need. And I talk to a lot of our clients, and we run off of a 12-week to a 14-week cash flow analysis at all time. So I want to know where we're going to be over that extended period of time in the business. But some of these guys, they try to grow so fast, they don't get to put the little pieces in place they need to have. Show the profitability, show you're stable, show that you're a business that's going to do all the things the right way. Then get the line of credit, then hit the gas, right? So some of the guys try to hit it before that, and then they realize that their cash flow is tight, and they're like, oh shit, I can't get a loan because my cash flow is so tight.
Yep.
Even though I have a good business, I might have a good business, but it's just sometimes cash flow is king in anything.
Correct. And what I see the most common issue is, especially businesses typically between like that 750,000 up to the 5 million mark, is usually one of three things. One of those is they've done everything with cash, which really isn't a bad way to get up to that point, in my opinion. It actually teaches you good habits. The longer you can manage your business, the better off you're going to be later on in the road. But don't let that mentality, contaminate the pool of growth, you do need loans to scale the way you want to scale, right? So if they're cash only, they have no history for lending. When they go to get a loan, there's nothing there to support that they're actually capable of paying back a loan, right? The second one is they've used their personal credit card, home HELOC loans, loans from family members, 401ks, grow and scale. Way over any other firepower left. All that stuff. The third one is they've relied too much on one form of lending. So that might be a local bank, a smaller regional bank where they've done all their loans through. And now when they go to scale and do more, that local lender puts a stop to them and says, nope, sorry, you can only do this much more because you've already hit your cap on what we can do. That's a problem that I come across as well with people in that position. So a lot of it is just understanding how to navigate that building block phase, truly build out a strong, diversified foundation so that when you are ready to hit the gas, you have options. That's what all of this is about.
Well, that's one of the things. Like most contractors or business owners in general, they wait till they need the money to go get the money, right? So, like one of the things that we talked about, like at Fiskor, when we partnered there, he's been cash forever. He bought every vehicle cash. Everything is cash, which is, like you said, is not a bad thing. He's got the business makes money. Everything's paid off. It's nice, but the same thing happened. We try to go do these things, and it's like, hey, we try to go get a vehicle. Now we got to PG it because there's been no history of vehicle coverage and stuff like that. So it is important to have business credit, and you can get something like a business credit card, right? Like we use Capital One Spark cards. I get 2% back on everything. We pay it off every month. It obviously helps us build our credit. I could go charge that thing for $1 million today, right? Yep. Well, obviously not going to get $1 million overnight, but that thing over time they start extending and allow you to have more because they trust you. So you start with the credit cards, obviously vehicles. A lot of people want to go pay cash for the vehicle, but you're buying an old used vehicle, you can't depreciate it. I could go buy a van, I could double depreciate it. Obviously, if you're a profitable business, you want to have some depreciation, but also it's going to keep cash flow in the business. I would rather spend $2,000 a month and then have the rest of that cash to go put into marketing that's going to allow me to scale the business. Yep. So sometimes we think backwards and we're so scared of the debt, but sometimes there's good debt and there's bad debt, right? Yep. Now if we're talking about the bad debt, we're talking about these merchant cash advance loans. And keep in mind, I'll tell you guys a story. So when I started Absolute Airflow, I started with nothing, and I took one of those loans, right? And I took it right before COVID hit. So we didn't know COVID was coming. I took it. It was the first year where we had a bunch of overhead. And I had to cash flow us and try to get us through the shoulder season. And I took one of those loans, and all of a sudden now I'm just getting decimated, right? With these people. And guess what? If you don't pay them, what happens? Like we put a stop payment on, and all of a sudden some gangster from New York's calling me saying he's gonna fucking destroy my entire business and all this shit. And this is a true story. And obviously, like, a lot of people don't talk about these kind of things, but it happens, right? So when you start out and you have no knowledge, you don't know what you're doing. I was never a business owner before. I was just like, I could, this loan, I could get $200,000 a day, $300,000 a day. Perfect. I need the money. Right. Took the loan. Obviously COVID hit. All of a sudden I got nope. My phone stopped ringing. Everything stopped ringing. These guys don't mess around. So, just make sure you guys are being smart with it, and obviously making sure that, you kind of foresee what's going to happen. But obviously nobody saw COVID happening. Thank God we were able to get through all that stuff. But, it was a scary time. Do you want to talk about, do you have any good stories where you've heard about these I guess more predatory loan guys calling and harassing contractors?
Yeah. I tell people all the time, like, don't be afraid of talking about, the negative side of the loans, right? Like, I think so often, like business owners, we tend to be really prideful in what we do. So we get ourselves into these situations to try to get out of a bad situation. We make it worse, and then we compound it by kind of being quiet about it and not bringing it up to people in a timely fashion to be able to stop. I've got a client right now that had an MCA, wasn't able to really pay on it, is now getting just absolutely the emails and the calls that he gets it's next level. Like, I'm pretty sure all the MCA stuff goes back to what you said. It's some mafia connected money that's going around here, right? Because these guys that call people, not fun. So then what he ended up doing before we ended up being able to start working with him is he then went and got a debt consolidation loan for this, which is honestly the other side of the story that is equally as predatory as the MCAs. Because what they do is they interject they work as basically like a mediator for you. They break all the loans, stop paying on them, and then they force them to consolidate. Well, the problem with that is now you've got basically two predatory companies working against each other that both want to collect money from you, and it doesn't always go the way that we want. So then your personal credit ends up getting destroyed. You end up losing and spending more money than if you would have actually just came out and worked with an actual banker, someone like myself, business brokers, loan brokers that are actually know how to do these things and unwind this stuff and do it the right way. But it can be a very scary place to get into as an owner when you've got multiples of these stacked up and you can't pay them, and they're relentless with the amount of phone calls that they give you, the emails, the texts, and it's super threatening. The way that they word the things, it sounds like they're going to show up to your business and lock the doors, lock you out, like take all your assets. Like it's not a fun place. I've got 3 guys that got to a point where essentially the emails were coming down that like, hey, if you don't pay us this amount of money by tomorrow, we'll be the padlock and we'll lock everything down until you can pay us what you owe us. Right. So it's just almost one of those things. It's just better off to stay away from those things.
Yeah, and that's what the point of this call, right? Is things that they can do. Like, if you were starting out, say you got decent personal credit, 700 plus, right? You're starting out. What would be one of the first steps you would make as far as trying to build some business credit?
Yeah, first and foremost, I always look at your supplier accounts that you have, right? So suppliers are some of the best ways to build up initial lines of credit as a new company. Now, granted, that takes a little bit of time and a little bit of relationship side of things, but a good credit score will get you some decent initial credit terms with them. The other one is I'm going to go and get a decent credit card. Capital One Spark, I know a lot of people like using it because of 2% back. The thing that I don't like about Capital One Spark is that for 90% of business owners, all of that activity gets reported on your credit until you get to a certain point. So that can also turn into a bad situation if you can't make a payment on that card each month, because it's going to lower your credit score. It's going to cause roller coaster effect. So some of the better startup credit cards are like your Amex Blue Cash, Bank of America, US Bank, Wells Fargo Insight has a good one. Chase Inc. has a great startup card. Those are kind of where I would start for that initial capital. But then I would go to like a larger regional bank. So depending on where you're at, if you're on the West Coast, like Umpqua is a good one. If you're down in Dallas, Frost. Up here in Minnesota, we've got Bell. Huntington's a great bank to go to that's startup friendly. And I would actually go in and present a business plan to them with projections and a good credit score. And we just got a client who is he's starting year 2 of his excavation company. He specializes in septic tanks and that kind of thing up in Wisconsin. We were able to get him a $150,000 startup SBA with $75,000 working line of credit on top of that. So sometimes it's just a matter of taking a little time and thinking, what will I need access to here and how do I best approach this? A little bit of planning presents a lot of pain in the end, as long as we're still doing everything with the right motives, because that money has to be used on something that's going to give you a direct return.
No, 100%. And I think that's one of the things that we have to make sure we're also being smart with with that money too. Like, obviously when you get these lines of credit, you get all this stuff, like how quickly you pay it back. So like if I got a credit card today, I would try to pay it off immediately. Every time I make a purchase, I'm trying to pay it off. Especially when you're first starting out, just showing that you can pay those payments back. The same thing with working with your vendors, right? Like when I first went to my vendor and I asked for a line of credit, they were like, here, I'll give you 25 grand. And I'm like, dude, like 25 grand is fucking four installs. We do that in a day. Right? Like, what is that going to do for us? But I said, okay, I'll take the 25 grand. And the thing is, like, what I learned is you always want to ask for more. So like when I go ask for a line of credit, I ask for $1 million and they say, well, they come back with 500 grand. I'm like, you gave me 500 grand. Awesome. And a lot of people are scared to use those lines of credit, which is, it's pretty much free money because you're not paying interest on these things. So these guys are extending these terms. You're not paying interest on them. You're able to, for me, like we're able to get them out to, 90-day terms on these things. We're able to cash flow. It allows us to keep cash flowing the business. Now, keep in mind, you got to make sure you keep paying. But for us, it allows us to cash flow the business and not be stressed out.
Yep.
So So obviously, I would definitely start with your lender or with your distributors, and really tell them what you plan to do. And you just got to make sure you pay them back. Like, your vendors have to be your best friends. I've been there before where I got behind on my vendors, and it caused me so many issues. Right. So like all of a sudden now they're like, they don't want to work with you. They're not going to help you. And the longer you make it work, the longer it goes on, the worse it gets. So like, and then later, even if you're in good standing, they don't trust you anymore. So like, you got to make sure that you build that trust and relationship with your vendor, and that's why it's really powerful to really work directly with one specific vendor that you really do a lot of your business with. I know sometimes we have to switch and use stuff otherwise, but like from us, we try to run like most of our business through one vendor to show them, hey, we want to be a good partner to you, because if you're a good partner to them, then they're going to be a good partner to you, and they want to keep growing with you.
Yeah. No, I mean, that part of it is huge. The other part, I love what you said, ask for more. Like, a lot of times what I find with clients is like when we start working with them, they're like, man, my credit card company capped me at this. I'm like, well, when's the last time you went back and asked them for an increase? And they're like, well, I never have. I'm like, okay, well, let's start just with asking and see what comes back. And a lot of times they'll come back and they'll give you an increase, right? Especially if you're in good standing with them. Same with suppliers. Going back to kind of what you asked me as a startup, how do you build your business credit up? One of the most slept on things for building business credit is if you're starting a company and you're doing a home service business where you're out on the road a lot, grab a fuel card. You can grab fuel cards fairly quickly as a startup. You don't have to have a ton of time in business. If your credit's decent, it's going to go on your personal credit as a guarantee, but it's not going to show up or reflect on your personal credit unless you miss a payment or go derogatory with it. But that combined with supplier accounts can be really great ways to kind of build your business credit from scratch. And fuel cards are a great way to help manage cash flow so that you're not always hitting your debit card up and filling that cash in your account. You can extend those terms out a little bit longer just to keep things churning and moving. So don't sleep on those either. Like, that's a great way to do it. And then as you build your credit up, you get access to things like Bill and Divvy and Ramp cards. And those are also good cards that don't require your personal credit to be used to be able to give those to your team members when they're out doing things that aren't directly tied to you.
No, 100%. And the other thing, like for us, even, I know vehicles is always a hard thing, right? And like for us, like, a lot of times people want to go get a vehicle and they got to go, the whole process kind of sucks. But like for us, like when you build up the business credit, like for me, like I go to Ford today and I say, I want 10 trucks. They just give me 10 trucks. I have a line of credit. We can get it out. We can get the vehicles done right away. I don't have to put any money down. It's already taken care of, but that's because we put in that time and effort to build all that stuff up. So, Paul, I know you're going to be out here in California in a couple of weeks. We have our Profit is Sanity event, April 10th and 11th. What are some of the things that, when our guests are here, what are some of the things you really want them to ask you, or things that they should maybe bring that would be able to give you some information to help them? Because obviously the event's more like a workshop. You're going to be speaking and stuff too, but there's more of a workshop building. So I want to know, like, what are some things they can bring, or some things that they can put on paper beforehand, so you can kind of give them an idea where they stand.
Yeah. So, a couple of things that I always say is, if you don't know what your business credit score is or where you're sitting, it's probably worth going out and getting a report on yourself so that you know exactly what is out there on you, right? So if people want to reach out to me ahead of time that are going to be there, they can definitely do that. I'll put my information in this podcast and this information. We pull business credit reports for people all the time for free. That's just part of our services, because I think education is so important for that side of things. The other things that I think that is good for a business owner to work with or bring along is, who are all the vendors that you're working with? Who are all the expense cards that you're using? Do you have a fuel card? What business credit card are you using? Because not all business credit cards report to the business bureaus. That's an important thing to know and understand. Who are you lending through? Where are your vehicles loaned through? Are you renting vehicles, and is the place that you're renting through, are they reporting that rental payment every month to the business bureaus? If they're not, that might not be a great source to use. If you've done a lease with a dollar buyout through a company, are they reporting that as well? The amount of companies that do these things, that do leases and rents, that don't report to the business bureaus, in my opinion, is it's almost kind of an insult to business owners, because it loses such a large builder of not only business credit, but also comparable debt for you to build on when that stuff doesn't get reported. So you're actually hurting yourself by going through certain sources. So know who those sources are, know where they're reporting, email them and ask them, are you reporting this? Does this report to the business bureaus? Get that information ahead of time. And then when we're out at this conference and we're going through things, I love interactive sets, right? When I'm up on stage, I love questions because not everybody has the same question, and it gives them opportunities in a different business opportunities, different supplier accounts, different ways of things. But then you can ask these questions on stage. Hey, if this is what you're not reporting. Are there ways that I can shift this in order to happy benefit me? What does it mean? How can it help benefit? How can I get into bigger contracts with it? Can it lower your insurance premiums? Absolutely it can, right? So like there's just a lot of that kind of stuff that if you come prepped with who your suppliers are, what your credit cards are, where your loans are through, what do your financials look like, reports up there on a PowerPoint that I'm doing that will look at what's actually on the credit reports and what do lenders actually look at these things. So just any of that information that you have. Hey, I've been denied for a loan and I had a good business credit.
Awesome. Well, Paul, I'm really excited to have you out there. I'm excited for this event overall, right? So, we're putting on this Profit of Sanity event really just to directly impact the people that are coming, right? So we're going through everything from operations, marketing, financial, sales, obviously business credit, and all the things in between throughout the business. And we're excited to really work one-on-one with each one of these companies. So obviously Paul's going to be there. He has to be working around the room. If you guys have any questions of being there, make sure to sign up. I don't know if we have any tickets. I think we maybe have 4 or 5 tickets left for the event. It's April 10th and 11th here in Huntington Beach, California. Hopefully it'll be a little sunnier today than it is today. But Paul, how can people reach you if they want to get a hold of you or maybe get a free business credit audit?
Yeah. Best way to get a hold of me is through email. Paul@blueskybizsolutions.com. It's BLUESKYBIZ solutions.com. We also have our website, Blue Sky Biz Pro. And then I'm on Facebook as well, just Paul Childers on Facebook. You can hit me up, message me. We'll get your information. It takes, maybe 5 minutes to pull a couple reports for everybody and look at where you're at, right? And then So
yeah, and like I said, this is one of those things that can significantly impact your business and your life going forward. So you guys got to take this stuff seriously. You got to make sure you guys are doing the right things. And a lot of times, like I said, you just don't know where to go, where to turn. Paul's vetted. He knows what to do. He's going to be able to help you guys be able to make those right decisions, be able to scale your business. And like I said, try to keep more money in your pocket, right? You save 3, 4, 5% on interest rates or shit. If you're going from 66% down to a 10% interest, you're saving a significant amount of money that's going to go right to the bottom line. And that's really what it's all about, right? How do we add more money to the bottom line? How do we scale these companies? And how do we make, more enterprise value? So Paul, I'm excited to see you next month. If you guys haven't got signed up for the event yet, please do. Profit is Sanity. We also have virtual available if you can't fly out to California. We suggest you fly out. This is going to be a badass event. The venue's amazing. All the stuff that we're talking on, working through all the contractors is amazing. So, Paul, I'm excited to see you. Thank you for everybody that tuned into this episode of the podcast. Hope you guys tune in next week. We got another amazing guest. Paul, thanks again, man.
Thanks, Victor.
Have a good one, brother.
You too.